Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito has extended an order that prevents a controversial Texas immigration law from taking effect. Known as SB 4, the policy would allow state law enforcement to stop, jail, and prosecute migrants suspected of crossing the border illegally. After backlash from the Biden administration, it was initially blocked from being enforced through Wednesday. And with Justice Alito's extension, that pause will now continue through next Monday. CBS News immigration reporter Camilo Montoya-Galvez joins us now. Camilo, remind us again, what are the arguments from the administration against SB 4?
Well, John, good evening. The Biden administration essentially has three main arguments against SB 4, the sweeping Texas state immigration law. The first one is that it interferes with federal immigration enforcement because it creates essentially a de facto state deportation system, allowing state judges to require migrants to return to Mexico when usually that is the responsibility of the federal government. It also allows Texas law enforcement at the state and local levels to arrest, jail, and prosecute migrants suspected of crossing into the U.S. illegally. That is also typically a federal responsibility. It is already illegal under federal law to cross into the U.S. outside of an official port of entry. The second argument is that it jeopardizes relations with Mexico because the Mexican government has strongly denounced this measure, saying it is anti-immigrant, and it has vowed to reject any potential returns of migrants from the state of Texas. The last argument, John, is that it conflicts with U.S. asylum law because Texas officials who are empowered under this law will not be able to adjudicate the asylum claims that some migrants caught up in this law may have. They won't be able to determine whether some of these migrants are fleeing persecution in Mexico or their home countries, rather.
So, Camilo, what does this extension do in terms of adjudicating any of those differences? And could the court extend it yet again?
Well, it's important to underscore, John, that what Justice Samuel Alito did today was to extend an administrative stay on a lower court ruling that had paved the way for Texas to enforce SB 4. This is not a ruling on the merits of the law or its legality. The lower court system is still weighing that question, whether this law is legal or not and whether it violates the U.S. Constitution. A judge already found that it does, but now the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals is weighing that exact question as well. What the justice is doing today is giving the Supreme Court more time, the entire High Court more time, to decide whether the law should be implemented while the appeals process plays out at the lower court level. So this will allow all the justices to weigh in the coming days on whether or not Texas should be allowed to implement this while lower courts decide the legality question.
Now, let me ask you the last question. In a recent 16 Minutes interview, Texas Governor Abbott was asked about racial profiling concerns with SB 4. Can you remind us why racial profiling is a particular issue here, and then what was his response?
Sure. Well, Governor Greg Abbott has argued that this law is needed to deter illegal immigration, but critics of the law say that it will, one, divert resources from very serious crimes that need to be prosecuted in the state of Texas, and two, that it would lead to racial profiling because local and state authorities won't be able to adequately determine who is a migrant and who is not. But in that interview with 60 Minutes, Governor Greg Abbott rejected those concerns because he's saying that migrants from across the world are coming to the U.S.-Mexico border, including migrants from Africa and Asia. So there's no one race, rather, or one nationality that will be targeted by this law. That is his argument, at least.